Steve and I have been involved in food system action and education our whole careers, and we wanted to be able to apply what we've been teaching and learning.
One of our approaches in agroecology is to get culture back into agriculture. We want it to be people-based, not just money-based, not just agribusiness. These are all components of sustainability of a food system.
Found this piece of land that was actually non-farmed land. It was grassland, with the vision of creating a small family vineyard using traditional practices that really work with nature versus trying to control nature.
Food justice has three elements. It's got an ecological, a social, and an economic component. Ecological, we need to treat the environment in a just way. Economic, we need to create livelihoods that support everybody in the food system, not just the corporate interests. And then socially, where everybody has opportunity in the food system, not just, but equitable, democratic, sovereign, autonomous, and that's what agroecology works towards. And that's what this, for us here at Condor's Hope, is an example of.
If we're going to achieve food justice, there are a lot of changes that need to happen in our food system. Ensuring that all people have access to good, healthy food for their own well-being and for the Earth's well-being. For example, in Cuyama, there's a lot of farming going on. There's a lot of agriculture here. Most of the world's carrots are grown in the Cuyama Basin. But this is a food desert. The people that live in the Cuyama don't have access to those carrots unless they go to a supermarket an hour away from here.
Our main goal, apart from ecological soundness with the way we farm, is to set up a relationship with the people who consume our product. Because for too long, the two most important parts of the food system, the people who eat the food and the people who grow the food, have been isolated completely from one another and have been exploited. It's time to stop that exploitation with food justice approaches and bring those two back together again.
We do what we call community harvests. People come out and they harvest with us. It's very intergenerational. It's very ethnically diverse. They're connecting the land. They're touching the fruit. They're working together in community. It's really magical.
Well, the Cuyama Valley, historically, we need to go back to the time the Chumash people were here. And they lived around water resources and depended upon them very heavily. And they moved with them and lived within the bounds of that.
Early history vineyards, or even biblical vineyards, were planted in very dry lands in the Middle East, and they used a system of dry farming.
Every little volume of soil, about half that volume is the space between soil particles. When it rains, that space fills with water, all the way down as deep as the water table. And then during the summer, in a normal system, it comes back to the surface and evaporates back to the air. Dry farming stops that evaporation so that all the water stays in that reservoir. Imagine half of the volume of the soil underneath your feet is full of water. That's a lot of water. And you train your plants to go deep for that water. And you manage the soil to hold that water in. The only drawback to that, of course, is that it limits the number of plants you can put on the soil. If you put too many plants, it draws too much water. We plant on a space of 10 by 10 feet. That's a lot less plants per acre than a conventional system that plants 4, 5, 6, 7 times as much, but increases the need for water.
All of the critically overdrafted basins in the state of California are in agricultural basins. There's something really out of balance here. And if we don't shift it, it's going to hurt agriculture as well as our food supply.
There's components of that dry farm system that can be used in any kind of farming, knowing that water is your key element, the thing that you work with and set limits around. Electricity really accelerated the perforation of wells and the extraction of water, and that's when corporate agriculture moved in and began growing crops purely for export and on a large scale with no concern for how much water they were using. It was believed that the water was unlimited. It was never going to run out.
The Cuyama Basin is one of 21 critically overdrafted basins in the state. If you use up all the groundwater, then we have nothing.
The kind of agriculture that we've been doing that's so extractive water has to change. And it may mean that the amount of carrots grown out here will be cut way back as new farming practices that grow carrots with less water. Or maybe this isn't the place to grow carrots because they need too much water. These are questions that will have to be answered, but at the same time, we need to be developing the alternatives that are going to take their place. Because we don't want to just abandon the valley and abandon the people that live here. And that's why we're thinking and believing that a local food system with farming systems adapted to this region take the place of those larger scale water extractive systems. And that sounds like a social reorganization as well, where small farms that used to be the strength of the valley, they come back. And the people who live here who've maybe been farm workers become farmers. And a network is developed that helps them do that, organizes their production in some sort of consolidated or aggregated market system that meets the needs of the food system locally and produces food to send to the rest of the county.
We here at Condor's Hope farm within our ecological limits. We respond to nature. We're using way less water than is replenished every year through rain. It can happen. It can be done. Dry farm wine is actually a higher quality wine as well because it produces a smaller grape and you have a higher skin to fruit ratio, and the skin is where all the tannins are. So you get a much more full body wine.
This Cottonwood Canyon is unique, and a lot of the outlying community are off the grid completely. From 1998 on, we started with solar, sold a generator and haven't needed one since. And with the change in solar technology, electricity generation, water pumping, and water heating, all three of those things are part of our system, showing that not only are we independent of inputs of water for our system, we're also independent of energy for powering that system. The technology has gotten to the point now where there's no excuse to not do it. I think this is a model of how we capture sunshine and put it in the bottle.